everyone, this is Ellen, and today I'm going to share with you a really neat trick that I've learned and I recently had the opportunity to use in a project. And as I was doing it, I was thinking I should make a video about this because I don't know if a lot of people know about this trick. And if you don't know, it's going to be really handy. And if you do know, then great for you. You can just stop watching this video. Basically, I'm going to show you what to do if you create your foundation row on your chain and you get to the end of it and you realize that you do not have enough, that you didn't chain enough. Now let me give you an example. So I'm going to make my slip knot and I'm going to chain. Now let's say that my pattern calls for 206 chains and I'm chaining along, because that's a lot, or maybe 500 or whatever. And you get, and I say, okay, I've counted 206. We'll pretend this is 206. And I then begin my first row of single crochet. And this trick works with all stitches that I know of, you know, half double crochet, double crochet, etc. But I'm going to show you the single crochet. And basically, we're going to be using chainless foundation techniques to continue the row. So you get to your end of your row and you think, great, I have finished 206. Wonderful, 206. Then you go in and you count your row, as you should always do, so that you don't get upset later. You always count your rows at the end. And I get to the end and I'm like, oh no, I only have 205 stitches. I have to take all this apart and start all over again. No, you do not need to. Let me show you what you do. So let's pretend I have 205 and I want 206. So what you do is, here is my last stitch right here. This little area right here. This is my last single crochet right here. And that is the top of my last single crochet. And I want one more, but there's no other chain. What do? What you do is you get to the bottom of your stitch. You find out where the bottom of your stitch is, and this would be the last chain right there, the bottom of your stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook into the bottom of that last stitch, and I'm going to insert my hook and grab my yarn and pull it through the bottom of that stitch. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to grab my yarn, and I'm not going to pull it through both loops. I'm just going to pull it through the first loop. And what that does, that creates another chain. Okay? And then once I do that, I like to pinch it to hold it in place. You don't have to, but I like to. And then you grab your yarn and pull it through both loops. And now I have my 206. It's as easy as that. Now, the only caveat with this is that now my tail is in the middle here. Not in the middle, but it'll be like not on the last stitch, which is not a big deal, but just means that when you go to weave in your ends, you just want to do a little bit of an artistic job weaving in those ends to make it look pretty. But you never see this, and especially if you're going to be adding a border, it's totally, no one's ever going to see that stitch. But I've been making a lot of placemats, and I've been making dishcloths and things like that. And some of them I've been doing a little bit of plan pooling, and some, so I needed the proper number, and I discovered this trick and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so helpful. Now let's say I needed another one. What I would do then is the same thing. As I find that last stitch and I go into the bottom of that last stitch, I want to make sure that I get into both. The bottom of that last stitch should have 2 little loops. And I pull it through, and again I just do the first loop, and then I pull through both loops, thus creating that bottom chain. And I could keep doing this. I could add 10 more stitches. I could, you know, does that make sense to you? I hope it makes sense to you. I think it's pretty straightforward, but I'll do another one very, very slowly so you see it. So I've got my last stitch here, and I want to add another stitch. So I find the bottom of that stitch, which sometimes can be a little tricky. You sometimes have to sort of feel for it, but I find that if I turn my work here and I put it through the first one, and then, which is usually easy, and then you got to find that second one to put it under, which is usually lower. And now you pull it through the bottom of that last stitch, and again you just pull your yarn through the first loop and then through both loops. So really easy, and this is really the same technique that you use for a chainless foundation. If you don't know what a chainless foundation row is, then there's plenty of videos on YouTube that will show you how to basically do what I just showed you, only starting at the very, very beginning. But yeah, that's it. That's what happens. No need to pull your hair out and curse when you get to the end of your very, very long chain and you realize that you don't have enough stitches. And now if you find that you have too much chain, then that's not an issue either. You just unknot the chain that you have until you get to the size you need. That's never really a problem. It's when you don't have enough chain that's a problem. But yeah, I mean, I guess I could show you a really quick chainless foundation. If you're going to make a chainless foundation row, then you start with your slip knot, and you start with 2 chains, and then you'll make your, or if you're doing a single crochet, let's do a double crochet. So I've got my 1 chain, plus I'm going to chain another 3 for my first double crochet, and then I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the first chain. And instead of working a regular double crochet like I would, I'm going to just go through that first loop, thus creating that chain, and then I finish my double crochet. Okay? Then I go into the bottom of the last double crochet. Go into that bottom. It's always easier to get that first. And you know, I recommend working a little bit loosely when you're doing the chainless foundation, because it can get hard to see, and so it's nice to work kind of loosely. So again, I pulled through that loop, and I just grab my yarn and I pull through just 1 loop to make that foundation chain, and then I work my double crochet as one normally would, and I like to pinch this here. So again, yarn over, beep, beep, beep. This is always the tricky part. There. Pull through there. And then my double crochet. So I have created a chainless foundation here with 1, 2, 3, 4 double crochets. And I could just keep going and create my foundation row that way. And if I was making my first row of double crochets and I got to the end and I didn't have enough chains, then I wouldn't need to worry. I would know what to do. So I hope this is a handy tip for you. I love it. It's like a huge light bulb went off over my head when I got to the end of my row and I realized I didn't have enough chains, and I thought, well, gee, maybe I could just use chainless foundation technique, and it worked. So yay, I hope this tip has been helpful, and I hope you all have a beautiful day. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.